Welcome to Champs Training. In this video we're going to answer the question, what are PM cycles? And I'll apologize in advance, there's not going to be much to see at the beginning of this video because as you'll notice here in the PM cycle drop-down, we just have 4 different cycles, but we want to talk about each one because they affect how you're going to set up your PM plan. So what are they and what do they do? Basically, these PM cycle codes are going to affect when the next due date is calculated for this PM. Whether it's calculated when the PM is first generated into a work order, or if it's calculated based on when that work order is complete. So let's take them one at a time. Fixed. A fixed cycle code means that when the PM is generated into a work order, the due date will be calculated, the next due date, from the current due date plus the frequency of the PM. So if we pop over to the trigger tab, you can see here this has a frequency of monthly. So if we selected fixed, it's going to take this next due date, add 30 days to it, and populate the next due date with that number when this is generated into a work order. And it's going to happen every time that it's supposed to. So for example, if it was a daily one and you had several of them already kicked out into work orders, it's going to just keep popping out more every single day. It's fixed. It's always going to happen. Now, float is kind of the different than that. We'll just say different. Float is the next due date is derived from the work order completion date plus the frequency. So this is based on when the work's done. So if you've got a work order that was generated from a float PM and it's not done yet, and a month goes by, using this PM as an example, another one's not going to be generated. The PM is going to have to wait until that work gets finished, and when it is, then the next due date will be calculated. Our third option is STTS, or surveillance tasks. This is kind of like a combination of the two. Initially, the next due date is going to be derived from the current due date plus the frequency when the PM is generated into a work order. So very much like a fixed PM. And if the work order is completed past that due date, well, then the next due date is going to remain where it's at. So it's going to act normal. However, if the related work order is completed before the next due date, then the PM's next due date will be recalculated using the work order completion date. So this helps it to kind of stay even more accurate and current based on your work plan and procedure. The final option is on demand. And this one basically doesn't touch the next due date at all. This is just, here's your template, and you have to manually generate this every time that you want a work order. And we have a video which describes the multiple ways that work orders can be generated from PMs to make good use of these on-demand cycles. Now, how is that going to look, say, in a due list when you're trying to generate your work? What effect is it going to have? PM number 1 here is fixed. And as you can see, every month, this due list is set up for several months, it's triggering that PM to generate work every time. This one, number 2, is a float PM. And as you can see, it took note of the fact that there's already an open work order for this PM, and so it automatically canceled the next occurrence until that first one is complete, at which point the next due date will be updated. So there's kind of a end result way to see it in action. So now you have a better idea of what PM cycle codes are.